Most traditional strategy sessions fail the moment a team starts making lists, because lists treat every problem, no matter its actual scale, as if it carries the exact same level of danger. Look at standard frameworks like a SWOT analysis or TOS matrix. Teams brainstorm, debate, and ultimately produce a whiteboard covered in simple qualitative bullet points. One bullet point reads, operational flaw, staff struggles with English. The next reads, existential threat, 2 months of cash runway left. Without mathematical weighting, these wildly different problems look identical. One bullet point equals one bullet point. This is the illusion of equality. When a framework lacks strict numerical constraints, figuring out where to allocate limited resources breaks down. Teams default to subjective gut feelings, or simply defer to the highest paid person's opinion in the room. Qualitative lists are excellent for generating ideas, but because they cannot calculate which problem to solve first, they are incapable of directing actual resource allocation. To fix this, we have to move past simple lists and use the Internal Factor Analysis Summary, or IFAS, and its external counterpart, the EFAS matrix. These tools do one specific thing. They separate the objective reality of the broader industry from the subjective capability of your specific firm. By forcing your strategic bullet points into a rigid, quantitative data table, you systematically strip emotional bias out of the boardroom. Abstract brainstorming becomes a hard, measurable science capable of accurately directing your capital. Consider a regional B2B distributor supplying hotels, restaurants, and catering businesses, the HoReCa sector. They are facing severe market disruption and need to map their strategy. We start by building an EFAS matrix, listing out the specific external factors, the macro opportunities and threats impacting their market. Then we introduce the weight column. This does not measure how good the distributor is. It measures how important that specific factor is to the overall industry's survival. There is a strict mathematical constraint. The sum of all factor weights must equal exactly 1.00. This exactness forces a painful trade-off. To increase the weight of a new threat, you must steal that fraction from somewhere else. The weight column functions as an objective, zero-sum map of the battlefield constraints, plotted before the firm even enters the fight. Next, we add the rating column. This measures the firm's localized capacity to respond to those specific external factors. The operational scale runs from 1, meaning a poor response capacity, up to 4, representing an outstanding response capacity. Executives often misunderstand this scale. A severe industry threat can receive a high rating of 4, provided the firm has built exceptional defensive moats to neutralize it. Finally, we multiply the industry weight by the firm rating. This generates the final weighted score for that row. An average industry response capacity sits at a baseline of 2.50. Through this single calculation, we fuse the macro conditions of the industry with the micro readiness of the firm into one actionable metric. When our HoReCa distributor finishes their math, their total EFAS score comes out to 2.70. Since 2.70 sits above the industry baseline of 2.50, the C-suite might assume their firm is in a strong, safe market position. But look at the row inflating that score. Opportunity 1, hotel recovery. A weight of 0.30 times a rating of 4 yields a massive 1.20, driven purely by legacy momentum. Now look down at the existential danger. Threat 2, national distributors dumping prices. This threat carries a massive industry weight of 0.30, but the firm's response rating is a failing 1.5. Their score here is just 0.45. This is the anomaly. The firm's high aggregate score is mathematically blinding the C-suite to their total inability to survive an incoming price war. If ignored, national competitors will systematically erode their market share from the bottom up, regardless of how many hotels currently buy from them. An aggregate score is dangerously misleading. True strategy isolates high-weight, low-rating anomalies and attacks them immediately. The mathematical integrity of an EFAS matrix relies entirely on the uncompromising quality of its inputs. To maintain that integrity, you must enforce the first operational constraint, delusion prevention. A matrix must be strictly capped at 8 to 10 critical success factors. If you allow 20 or more bullet points onto the table, the individual weights are pushed so close to 0 that the math becomes statistically meaningless. The second operational constraint is prioritizing fact-based writings over ego. Subjective departmental opinions must be barred from the matrix. If a sales director claims a rating of 4, they must prove it with hard data, cross-referencing win rates or retention statistics against the top competitor in the market. These strict constraints force a cross-functional executive team to sit down and actually debate empirical reality rather than political optics. Ultimately, any strategic framework must pass one test. Does the matrix actively move money? A corporate failure occurs when the EFAS matrix correctly identifies a critical vulnerability, like national distributors, but the annual CapEx budget allocates zero capital to actually solve it. To bridge the gap between strategy and execution, you have to draw a direct, unignorable line between the lowest performing critical factor and the budget spreadsheet. An analytical matrix that does not directly dictate resource reallocation is just corporate theater. The goal of doing this math is never to achieve a high aggregate score. The goal is to mathematically locate the exact point of organizational vulnerability. Quantitative strategy ends the debate. It points directly to where the very next dollar of capital must be deployed to ensure long-term survival.